Voices of the Silenced remembers the Jews ripped from Jerusalem in AD 70 and brought to Rome to quarry stone and build the Colosseum. They were now the property of their masters. Filmed in 7 countries and over 50 locations, our exploration compares the cultural captivity of the Jewish slaves in towns destroyed by the Vesuvius eruption in AD 79 with that faced by those silenced in the 21st century. People under an imposed state orthodoxy which reaffirms the ancient idea of pansexuality.
It's very striking that in the last 40 years or so, the elephant in the room in the Western world has been this rise of sexual politics, and yet no one seems to be describing it.
This work highlights those in Europe and North America who today recognize the powerful ideologies taking us back to the ancient world of state control. This violates family rights and institutionalizes political control of school, courtroom, and place of worship.
This film particularly looks at the interface between the Christian gospel and the ancient paganism of the Roman Empire. So essentially, it contributes to our knowledge of what happens when 2 very distinct points of view come together in a social context.
The faithful Hebrews passed on a unique sexual ethic that challenged the ethics of the surrounding nations. It still does so today. Will we be the generation that rejects this inheritance?
The Jewish people turned out to be countercultural. And in Europe today, the church particularly has to think about that. How to relate positively to culture where it can do so, but where it can't, how to resist capitulation to culture, which can of course be very strongly demanded.
In my view, Christians are being silenced in the public sphere. They're actually being silenced from our opponent's point of view for a very good reason, that Judeo-Christian values work, Christianity works, and it produced, for example, in the United Kingdom, parliamentary democracy, tolerance and freedom, and human rights, all the things our opponents claim we didn't give and they will give.
People have the right to walk out of sexual practices they find hurtful. Their freedom needs to be defended. Professionals who help them need to be protected.
Traditional Judeo-Christian values that have been supporting therapy in the UK are very much under challenge in the area of same-sex attraction. The principle of client autonomy has always been very important, and if we imagine a spectrum, what's happening now is that all the major mental health institutions have moved from the client end of the spectrum to the therapist end, where the therapist will direct the goals.
There is evidence that some people can be helped and experience transformation.
The 2 questions that we raised with the Royal College of Psychiatrists were that people are not born gay and they can change. Their statement had clearly stated the opposite of that. They never replied to us, but a year later, they just quietly changed their public statement, conceding both these points, that people are not born with an orientation.
Was mir bei Wüstenstrom geholfen hat, war zuerst mal, dass jemand da war, der mich versteht, der auch selber mit dem Thema schon selber homosexuelle Gefühle hat und selber auf dem Weg ist und der mich erstmal angenommen hat, mit dem ich erstmal reden konnte.
Today it's good. I mean, I feel secure in my masculinity, but at this point in my life, I'm happy being a man for the first time in a long time.
I've completely changed, like even in the way how I look, the way how I view life, the way how I relate to other women, the way how I relate to men. And definitely something has grown in the way I see men. But I definitely have every now and then a thought. And I mean, yeah, there are definitely moments that I think, okay, you know, like, oh, I'm triggered a little bit. But I know where it comes from. and I know what the roots are to those triggers, and I also know what to do with it.
Will the Church recognize the new pressure to stamp out the contribution of faithful Jewish ethical teachings from the scriptures, the professions, and the public space? It's not only Christians who succeed in finding their way out of unwanted addictive homosexual practices. That's why it's essential to protect every person's right to reject the new orthodoxy that demands that homosexuality is to be celebrated.
It is incalculable what Europe owes to Christianity, and its constant denial to an observer looks most astonishing.